I'm Trevor Tombe, and this is the School of Public Policy. Today, Professor Robert Mansell and myself released a report on economic diversification in Alberta, in Canada, and around the world. It's a very important discussion that policymakers and that everyday people are having about the state of our economy and how we go forward. But the word diversification has rarely been defined explicitly. And so our take is that if it matters, measure it. And so we crunch the numbers, try to look at diversification in different ways, see where we are diverse and where we might be less so, and think about what policies might be appropriate to address those. We've heard a lot about diversification by the provincial government, by the federal government, and we've seen a lot of policies rolled out to try and promote increasing levels of diversification in Canada. But when we crunch the numbers, in particular when we look at it in terms of jobs and employment, we find that Alberta is actually one of the most diverse provinces in the country. Something that's probably a little surprising to a lot of people. We find that that's even the case when you look at indirect employment, when we think about the accountants that supply oil and gas firms, for example. And so if there is a diversification problem, it is not on the employment side. And when we compare Canada to other countries around the world, we see that Canada is much more diverse than other major economies such as Britain, the United States, Germany, and again, that might be pretty surprising. So the story that we are focused entirely on resource development and oil and gas is just not the case. You can think about diversification in many different ways: employment, jobs, income, the products that we make, the markets that we sell to. And when we look at issues around our income diversity or our export market diversity, we do see that Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland are less diverse than other provinces. And this really follows from government revenue in particular being heavily reliant on resource royalties, on corporate profits, and worker income being tied to commodity prices, such as the price of oil in Alberta. And that really, though, points to policies that are very different than what are being pursued. If our concern is income diversity and income volatility, then we should think about ways in which we can save money in the good times to pay for things in the bad. And it's the saving side of that equation that proves pretty difficult sometimes, in Alberta in particular. When we look at the export side, Alberta especially exports almost everything to one market, the United States. And so when we're thinking about current discussions around Trans Mountain pipeline expansion or Energy East, things of that nature, those would serve to open up new markets for the products that Alberta sells, and that could really improve our export market diversification there. Policymakers, in an attempt to try and increase diversification, really think about policies that target subsidies to certain favored activities. There's a downside to that. There's a real economic cost because those subsidies will distort economic activity, will move workers and investment from other areas of the economy into the subsidized area, and that can lower productivity. And so absent a market failure, those type of policies really hurt overall productivity and overall level of economic activity. And so they can be counterproductive and costly. Instead, government should think about policies that are neutral across sectors, creating a favorable business environment, for example, having lower corporate income tax rates, for example, to increase investment. Or if they're going to provide income tax credits, to make sure they're available to everyone and not distort economic activity in the process. We should think about diversification as something that can arise naturally if we have the right environment, but we also should ignore the fact that comparative advantage and focusing and specializing in the things where we have an advantage is one of the very important sources of overall prosperity. Economists have known this for centuries, and so governments shouldn't try to interfere with that. You can find a copy of the paper at policyschool.ca and then click on Publications. I'm Trevor Tombe. This is the School of Public Policy. Thank you for watching.